Hey listeners, this is Ken Kell, and when I'm not calling the action on the ice for the Red Wings, I'm listening to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
All right, Doc here for the Detroit Beard Collective. Are you rocking a beard this spring, cuz? Is your beard feeling dry, scaly? Could the flyaway hairs use some taming? Does your beard have leftover food in it? You can't be rocking a beard like that these days. There's companies out there that help you groom your beard in a nice, tight way. Go to DetroitBeardCollective.com, a Detroit company that provides quality beard care products. Go to their website, DetroitBeardCollective.com, and check out the many items that they sell. Beard care sets, combs, Detroit Beard Collective t-shirts, or the very popular Beard Crate, which is a comprehensive beard care set which allows you to choose your favorite Detroit Beard Collective product, all for one great price. DetroitBeardCollective.com.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listening to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
All I want to know if you got your popcorn ready. Do you got your popcorn ready?
5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes!
I said, are you strong? They said, I'm strong if you strong. And I said, we strong then.
I'm a man. I'm 40.
Darren McCarty gets his shots in at Knobler. And look who came all the way out to try to help. Patrick Waugh. Oh my goodness.
You are listening to the Doc and Jock Show on the Detroit Sports Podcast.
Often imitated, never duplicated. Welcome, everybody, to the Doc and Jock Sports Podcast. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me back from his 2-week hiatus, traveling the world, hitting up the Dominican Republic, is Adam, the Jock Strozinski. What's up, cuz?
What's up, cuz?
We missed you around here, man. The podcast had 2 busy weeks with you not here. We want to give thanks to Kenny the Rock Frenzel. He gave himself his own nickname. He's like,
how do you do that? Can you do that? It's not allowed.
He's like, you know what?
You can't give yourself a nickname.
He's like, I came into the Doc and Jock studios. I have to kind of, he wants to feel accepted and belong. So he called himself The Rock, and he held his own. And he
can we just call him the Super Sub?
The Super Sub, Kenny Frenzel. We had a good time. Lots of happenings around the world of sports. But first off, we did miss you here at the podcast. Didn't have the same energy that you bring, the same kind of grit. Kenny and I, we had a little bit of fun, shared some memories of the past, and now that you're back, tell us a little bit.
Days in choir. I've seen those pictures.
You like that?
I was gonna tweet those out, but I was like, nah, I'll be nice to you. I'm not like you, where you sit there and you stalk my wife's Facebook, and then you sit there and blast me in front of everybody. But yes, I did see your choir pictures.
You like that? I was in
You guys look so bad, so bad.
Tell us a little bit about your trip to the Dominican. How'd it go?
Dominican was great. Loved it. Wanted to stay there. Tried convincing the wife to not come back. I was going to just become a bartender at some villa down there, and she could work for some medical staffing company to make sure Americans who came down there and drank too much didn't die. But she said, no, we have to come back home. So we came back home. The flight there and the flight home were awful. That's why I missed the second Thursday there. I was basically stuck in Newark, New Jersey. So if you ever get stuck in Newark, New Jersey, just know that the floors are filthy and the bathrooms smell like shit. It's horrible. But other than that, trip was great, man. I drank a lot. They have a lot of good rum. Water is beautiful and excellent. Do you know that every beach down there is a topless beach? And the only people who go topless are 70-year-old women whose boobs hang down to their knees? It was pretty disgusting.
The first time you see that, what are you thinking?
I was like, oh my God. And then I tapped my wife and I was like, look over there. And then she looked, and then we had 2 other girls that we had met up with, and I was like, look over there. And they looked too, and they're like, oh, her boobs are by her elbows, because she was laying on her back, and they just slid to the sides. And I was like, I know, it's horrible. It's so gross. Yeah, it was bad, dude. Awful.
Yeah, now it's mid-June. How's the weather? How's everything going down there? How's the vibe in the atmosphere in the Dominican Republic?
It's like 90s all day, every day. It's hot, really hot. So hopefully you're either on the water, near water, in the water, or like me, you're drinking and you're playing in the water. That's what I did. It was great.
Yeah, I seen some pictures. You won some contest, I guess. You went up to the bar, prepared some drinks. You and some other dude were like competing, I guess.
There are only two things in this world that I do really well. And in the Dominican Republic, I get awarded for them. And here in America, I get ostracized for them. I am a drunk and I throw things. And that's what I do. I won some cocktail making contest and I threw a pineapple really, really far.
Hey, that's unbelievable.
That's what I said.
Good stuff. So you're back. Did you miss sports? Did you miss the podcast? 2 weeks away, you kind of got away refreshed, kind of got away from the Tigers' ills, the woes, the ups and downs of the sports world. Do you feel refreshed, ready to kick this bad boy off?
I do. The thing that I liked the most was as the Tigers were kind of going through that little bit of a slump, I was out of the picture for it. And it's nice just to kind of detach from sports for a little bit. But what sucked was it was at the wrong time. You had Chicago winning a Stanley Cup. You had Golden State winning an NBA championship. And the thing is, I got to see the end of both of those games because even though you're in a foreign land, ESPN is all over the world and ESPN shows all. So I got to see those things and I got to enjoy them, but not the same way. And then the moment that you touch down in the United States, I don't know about you, but like I get all these updates on my phone. And next thing you know, it was like the Twin Towers just blowing up my phone. It was just beep, 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 beep. And I basically got caught up on 2 weeks worth of everything. I don't know, a matter of 3 minutes. It was insane. So I did miss it. It just wrong time. I really wish maybe a week or two later would have been much better. That way I could have got to witness those championships.
But we have a lot to get to on this podcast. You don't get the chance to go on vacation and come back and get a light podcast. We got a lot to talk about with the Lions, the Tigers. We got an interview with former Detroit Tigers beat writer. Now he contributes to the Bleacher Report, and he wrote a book, a Detroit Tigers book. Danny Knobler, later on in this podcast, will be joining us, talking the Tigers, looking at the recent, looking at the series versus Cleveland, and looking at some woes with some of the players and some of the news and notes with the Tigers. Also, coming up probably shortly, maybe in the next 5 or 10 minutes, an individual kind of was like, you know what? There is a lot of hate in Detroit. And he decided that I want to make a documentary regarding Detroit and the positive nature of the city, the great sporting landscape, and we'll have a chat with a movie maker in about 5 or 10 minutes. But to kick this bad boy off, I want to talk to you about some news and notes regarding the Lions. Some people now in the media, writers, and yesterday on the NFL Network are kind of talking about and exploring what Calvin Johnson can do in his 9th season.
Dude, I wanted to talk to you about this too because I seen that.
You did see it?
Go ahead. I'll let you set it up.
I saw it and I was like, wow, dude, a lot of hate for Calvin Johnson upon his return to Twitter. And he responded to it, which was very interesting. But they did a poll of the fans, and they just wanted to know at the NFL Network who they thought the best NFL receiver was. And I was quite surprised by who got the vote for number one. A guy that you definitely like on your fantasy teams, a player that has a lot of potential, breakaway speed, explosive speed. The fans thought that Antonio...
the only player in the NFL to use a Mortal Kombat finishing move on a kicker. Set it up right, bro. Set it up right. The only player in the NFL to sit there and punish a kicker with a kicking maneuver.
Antonio Brown was voted by the fans as the number one receiver currently in the NFL, followed by Des Bryant, and then our Calvin Johnson was ranked third with only about 13 to 14% of the vote. What was your reaction to that? And do you think he was slotted at the right spot, or maybe even should have been ranked even lower going into his 9th season, coming off of an injury-plagued season, and what his potential could be like in 2015?
I think that's exactly how it should be set up. Calvin Johnson over the last 2 or 3 years hasn't demonstrated anything except that he can get hurt and he can play with bent fingers. So I think that's right where he needs to be. I think last season, you've seen it with Antonio Brown. He was the most dominant wide receiver on the field, whether it be catching balls out of routes or returning punts. He was the most helpful for his team. Him and that combination of Le'Veon Bell was incredible for Pittsburgh last year. And then you've got Des Bryant, who was just a man-child, ended up getting screwed in that game against Green Bay when he had a touchdown, and they said he was down, I think, at like the 3-yard line. So I think 1 and 2 right there. And then if you just want to go on based on sheer size, and if you want to go on the history that Calvin Johnson and what he can do physically and what he brings to the table and how he makes that offense for the Detroit Lions that much better, sure, if you want to slot him in at number 3, I can understand that. But I think Antonio Brown is hands down the best wide receiver in the NFL right now. Hands down. Followed very closely by Des Bryant.
I like to order by the fans, but I would actually think right now, if Des Bryant can keep his mouth shut, can keep his attitude in check, at this point in time in his career, I would consider Des Bryant potentially to be the number one receiver in the NFL because of his size, his strength. He's a matchup nightmare, and he's just tough to guard. I mean, the issue with Des Bryant is not his talent on the field. Yes, he could make some one or two more key plays like in the game versus Green Bay. He should have caught that ball. But if he just
catch that ball, he got robbed by the ref. Come on, he got robbed.
The process, he needed to secure the process.
That's such a joke of a rule.
The big time players secure the process in this day and age. But if he just keeps his mouth shut, if he just handles his business, then he would be considered the best NFL wide receiver, in my opinion.
I understand that, but I think what Antonio Brown can bring to the football field and brings to the Pittsburgh Steelers is amazing. The guy is a phenomenal route runner, probably one of the best in the league. On top of that, he does different things that can help get and create separation. So passes where Calvin Johnson is going up and battling 2, 3, 4, 6, an entire team of defenders, Antonio Brown does a little shoulder shake, a little head shimmy, and next thing you know, he's got 2 feet of separation. He catches the ball and walks right into the end zone, which helps preserve his body. So he's not running around with fingers that are bent the wrong way, trying to catch footballs and then dropping them all the damn time, Calvin Johnson. On top of that, he has more breakaway speed than a guy like Calvin Johnson, maybe even a Des Bryant. But I think what Antonio Brown does probably better than both of these guys is he just kind of stays quiet, just kind of does his job, goes about his business, doesn't pop off like Des Bryant. You know what I'm saying? You don't hear about Antonio Brown having custody battles with his baby mamas like Calvin Johnson did a little while ago. Doesn't disappear from Twitter and then reappear on Twitter and sitting there trying to battle everybody. He's a different player, man. I like him. Central Michigan alum, does his thing. It's great. He doesn't have the physical attributes of both those guys that we're mentioning, but he does so much else that is so much better. And on top of that, you include his ability to field punts and get you. I think every year he has at least 1 or 2 punt returns for a touchdown. I mean, that's more points, man. Special teams is important. You as a Lions fan, you know special teams is important. That's the only reason Jason Hanson has lived here, and everybody still holds Jason Hanson to such high regard because for the longest time, he was the only guy we had on special teams.
And Calvin is very valuable to the Lions. If you remove Calvin Johnson...
that offense looks totally different.
It does, but Golden Tate, if they feature him a little bit more, he did hold his own in the games when Calvin was out. So we did get a glimpse of what it would look like, but you definitely want to have Calvin Johnson on your roster. But before we get to...
I think you can make the argument that last year, if you look at the way they were featured, Golden Tate was probably better than Calvin Johnson last year with the way they were featured.
That's what I thought. We talked about it on the podcast. We said that we should give more balls and more throws to Golden Tate and let's see what he can do because Matthew Stafford views Calvin, as most quarterbacks would, as a security blanket. If you have a freak like Calvin Johnson, who's so tall and so fast, you're going to have to target him. But right now he's coming off of a season where he had surgery on his knee and finger, and this season is going to be very interesting. His 9th season, how is he going to recover? How is he going to hold up? Is he going to play 16 games? Because writers are saying, hey, this player, Calvin Johnson, Megatron, might be starting to get that overvalue tag.
I think what he brings to
$17 million to the cap
it's a lot.
It's quite a lot.
It's a lot of money, and that money could be used differently. And you've seen it this offseason when they had to let guys like Ndamukong Suh go. They let Nick Fairley go more for, I think, production and his attitude, but they weren't able to bring back key pieces that they had last year on that defense. So you're absolutely right. That's a ton of money. But what he does do, even as a decoy, just being out on the field, he totally changes the way that offense looks. And he frees up other players like a Golden Tate. I think last year Golden Tate was better than Calvin Johnson. I think he was the 1A receiver. I think Calvin Johnson maybe 1B, maybe the second wide receiver on this team. But that being said, Calvin Johnson is a game changer, and I think that's what you're paying him for. You're paying him to be that difference maker.
Okay, Anthony Brogdon is on the line. We're going to go to him shortly. Let's just set this up. A lot of people around town and nationally kind of hate on Detroit for some of the negatives, things that are reported regarding the city, some crime issues, things like that. But Anthony Brogdon came up with a great DVD, a great documentary called The Great Detroit. It was, it is, it will be. Tweeted us earlier today, and When he tweeted us, he kind of said, hey, listen, I want to get this message out. I want people to see this documentary, and it highlights some good things with Detroit regarding the sporting community, regarding the city. And Anthony Brogdon joins us on the Detroit Sports Podcast to talk about his movie, The Great Detroit. Anthony, thanks for calling us up.
Yeah, thank you for having me on your show.
Tell us a little bit about the movie, The Great Detroit. What was your inspiration for this, and what's the storyline in the documentary that you created?
Well, The Great Detroit, it actually was released April of last year, so I've celebrated a one-year anniversary. I'm a first-time filmmaker. I'm a little older guy. It's something I've always wanted to do, and procrastination kind of held it off for years. I want to do feature-length films, so I thought a good place to start would be a documentary, and a subject matter that I know a lot of is my hometown, Detroit, Michigan. So 3 years, 2014, I embarked on this project. The film has 55 interviews. It covers a little bit of everything about Detroit, including our sports history. Was lucky enough to get Jim Starks, who was the president of the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame, as the interviewee who discussed the history of pro sports. And he talks about the Lions, the Tigers, the Pistons, the Red Wings, Crump, Emmanuel Stewart, the Olympics, and just a little bit of everything to give a broad view of Detroit sports history.
Take us through the movie-making process. Did you find it difficult? Were you intrigued by movie-making? And did you find that the film came out the way that you wanted, the documentary film? I'm looking forward to seeing it, actually.
Yeah, well, to take you through it, it took me 3 years. I ran out of money in about a year and a half, so it sat for a while, and then I got the money to finish it. And it was somewhat easy in that I had a good script that I wrote. To what I wanted to do was to educate people, to inspire, and to entertain. And I knew I wanted to cover a little bit of everything. So the film starts at 1701 when Detroit was founded. And I talk about how and why Detroit was founded and how it became a manufacturing powerhouse. I show Henry Ford's first plant, which many people think is in Highland Park, but it's not. It's actually in Detroit on Paquette Street. Then we go from the various industries that are in Detroit. We lead with the beverage industry and Faygo, the snack industry and Better-Made chips, the confectionery industry with Sanders, Coney Island hot dogs. A lot of people think was started in Detroit, and maybe that's true. And then we go from there and we talk about the history of Motown and Eastern Market, public pottery, all the museums, all the schools. So I put all this together by finding people in those various industries, many times the president or executive director of the various organizations. In many instances, they were open to the interview as I convinced them that the film would be just as I had said, and it would be 98% positive. I do show one abandoned building just to kind of give it a little balance, but all the other, let's say, negative connotations that we talk about Detroit and some that you alluded to, I do not put in the film. There are other documentaries that do that. Mine doesn't.
Anthony, what was your favorite part of making the documentary?
The favorite part was actually filming. Finding the people, not necessarily the favorite part, but actually going out with my camera crew and giving some direction, and also talking to the interviewees and letting them know that they had 2 minutes and they had to hit it hard in that 2 minutes, and they had to be direct. And it was kind of funny. There were instances where people kind of rambled, and true, you can cut that out and edit, but it didn't allow me to get to the meat of it, and I had to stop them. And, I mean, you're talking about the president of some organizations. Yeah, stop, man, that's not what I want. It was kind of cute. But then when I told them really what I was looking for, they were able to hit it, the nail on the head. So maybe the direction and the directing part was probably the favorite part.
Was there anything that kind of surprised you or that you learned that came out of making the documentary that was awesome for you?
Well, there are a number of little-known facts, not to give away too much, but I guess I will since you got me on the show. The Kiwanis International was started in Detroit in 1950. I found the historical marker as to where they actually had their first meeting. We have, and I'm not going to tell you where this is, but we have a man-made island in Detroit that was actually completed in 1921. the other thing is I knew Detroiters were great people. I've met numbers of them throughout my lifetime. But, just actually finding some of the unique stories of how people have persevered in their careers and did well in Detroit and all the good things, I found that most interesting. The DVD is out, as you said. It's available on Amazon. It's priced, reasonably, if I can say, $10. The film is 75 minutes. And I show it in various places around the city. The next showing is July 20th at the Dearborn Library. I'm going to take August off. I don't have anything scheduled. But then I come back at Wayne State, Madonna College, University of Michigan, and hopefully I got a schedule put together that will come together in Las Vegas, Phoenix, and Atlanta before the end of the year. It's called The Great Detroit, and it is available on Amazon. The website is astrongdetroit.com, astrongdetroit.com.
Yep, and you can.
It's a good film.
Yeah, how has it been received by your friends, your colleagues, and by yourself? You came out. Did you find that? I know sometimes artists are very self-critical, but how did the end product come out to you and the people that are close to you?
It came out real well. The only shortcoming, like I said, my money was kind of short, so I had to do some of the edit, and I did that. So if there's any shortcomings, it's because of my effort in terms of the edit. And even then, I had a professional help kind of smooth it over. My friends love it. I don't have any real negative comments other than some people say, hey, you should have had a little more negative. I don't believe Detroit is that great, so it's kind of hard to convince people. I'll give you an example at various theater showings at the DIA, the Charles Wright, Historical Museum. We've had good audiences. And even still have sold DVDs after the people walk away. So to me, that's an indication that it's something special. So I don't have any reservations about the film whatsoever.
Yeah, you can follow Anthony on Twitter at Strong Detroiter. At Strong Detroiter. Anthony, you said you got into movie making. Do you have any future projects on the horizon or any ideas as to what you want to do next in movie making?
Oh, I sure do. I'm in filming now. I have another movie called Business in the Black, which will be out in September. And then I begin filming my first feature-length non-documentary, which is called Foot Soldiers. So this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And I enjoy it. And you'll be hearing a lot about Strong Productions, which is my production company. Business in the Black will be out in September.
In your new project, any room for two aspiring podcasters? Young, good-looking, very vocal, strong opinions?
Doc's always trying to push the podcast.
Yeah, that's a good thing. It's what you do, you push it. It's funny, I always carry DVDs in a black bag with me, and my kids hate the black bag, but I never go anywhere without it because I've sold DVDs in some of the most unique places in supermarkets and gas stations for people that I, know or run into, or just for maybe a stranger and have me mention it to them. So it's what you do, you love it, you tell somebody.
That's right. Thank you, Anthony, for giving us a few minutes, sharing with us your great documentary. If you want to buy it, go to the Amazon link at DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Anthony, best of luck. We hope to hear from you soon, and we hope Adam and I are going to check this movie out and your future projects. Good luck, man.
Continued success.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it. Have a good day.
Take it easy.
Interesting stuff. A good, positive outlook on Detroit, a year-old film, a year-old documentary. Check it out. If you go buy it, $10. Go through our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com.
There's an interesting trailer on YouTube as well. You can check it out. Kind of alludes to what he talks about and kind of covers what he discusses in the documentary.
Yeah, pick up The Great Detroit documentary on Amazon and click through DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Interesting stuff. All right, let's take a quick break. We will come back, wrap up our talk with Calvin Johnson, some expectations for the coming season, and then we'll talk a little Tigers, and then we'll chat with Danny Knobler, great longtime baseball writer, another author who has a project, and he wrote a Detroit Tigers book. So stay with us. Lots to get to on this podcast. Doc and Jock, podcast number 98, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. All right, cuz, let's check in with one of our favorite sponsors, Sport Displays, Jersey Mount. The Sport Displays jersey mount are the easiest and most affordable way to proudly show off your favorite jersey, uniform, sweater, t-shirt, or costume. With its unique design, Sport Display jersey mounts are the only hangers on the market that can be mounted to any surface. This allows for easy access to your favorite jersey on game day by simply snapping the rod into or out of the holder. If you have a Steve Yzerman jersey, he not only is a great executive, you want to hang up his Detroit Red Wing jersey in your office, simply snap the jersey mount on and off. It's easy to use. The jersey mount really adds to any man cave. Sport Display jersey mounts are affordable, easy to install. They can be mounted anywhere to both wall or ceiling. If you want, go to jerseymount.com/Detroit-sports-podcast and get a jersey mount and get 5% off. Visit jerseymount.com and check out a really great product that really adds to any man cave. jerseymount.com. Get 5% off. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for your support. Lots of ways to support us here at the podcast. If you like what you're listening to, if you enjoy the podcast, if you want us to continue to provide great content every Monday and Thursday, if you want us to continue to take phone calls, just go to our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Click through those banner links. Lots of great online deals. I know everybody that's listening likes to save money. DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Click through those banner links, bookmark them, and every time you shop online, nothing extra happens. You get charged no more money. But when you shop online through DetroitSportsPodcast.com, they kick us back a little something, and we can continue to provide great content. DetroitSportsPodcast.com. We greatly appreciate it. Yes, sir. DetroitSportsPodcast.com, the Doc and Jock Sports Podcast, creeping ever so close to episode number 100. We have done 98 of these. Jock has been around for most of them. He had to
I missed 2 of them.
He had to tap out. He couldn't take it anymore. He's like, I've sat for 95 or more of these podcasts with the Doc. I'm going crazy. I got to leave the country, go to the Dominican. But he's back. He's back, y'all.
I started to get Asperger's. That's where my ass starts looking like cheeseburgers all day long.
He's like, I cannot take this controlling podcaster wannabe. I cannot take Doc anymore. I have to get out of town. And he's back, ready to spit fire and bring some strong sports takes. Getting back to Calvin Johnson, just your expectation for his 2015 season. Does he get over, under 7 touchdowns?
I'm going to go over because he's going to be healthy. I don't think the yards are going to be there, though. I think that's going to be the thing. I think he's going to be utilized more as a red zone target. His yards after the catch have been down every year, it seems, since he had that magnificent season where he sat there and broke Jerry Rice's record. So I don't think his yards after the catch are going to be all that great, but I'm going to go over, and I will say, I'm going to do you one better. I'm going to say 9 touchdowns for Calvin Johnson, 2015.
I'm getting ever so nervous because really, this is one of those seasons you really can't predict what's going to happen with these Lions. Are they going to come out and surprise everybody and really respond well to the challenge on defense? Or are they going to come out and fall flat based on the really tough schedule, the heavy expectations with the loss of some great players? So it's going to be a great season for the Lions. I would say right around there. I think he's going to get 6 to 7 touchdowns. He's going to get a lot of yards. I just think that the touchdowns are going to be spread a little bit more with Ebron, with Golden Tate, and with Lance Moore.
Ebron's going to catch a ball this season?
I think so.
What? Have you not heard everything that's been going on in OTAs? The guy can't hold on to a ball to save his life right now.
He's getting better.
It's awful.
It's practice. It's in his head. He came out. He said
bust.
He wants to be a bad man.
Yeah, I want him to catch a damn football. So you're fence sitting then. You're saying 7 touchdowns for Calvin? So
right around there.
You're pushing? Of course you would push.
I think Lance Johnson.
You have to pick.
I think Lance Moore is going to take some touchdowns. Eric Ebron's going to take some. Golden Tate will take some. Okay, if I have
set it at 7.5 then, so that way you can take 7.
Okay, I'll take.
So you go under.
No, I'll go over. I'll go over 8 to 9.
You're gonna go 8 to 9 now.
8 to 9.
Look, did I talk you into it?
Yes, you did.
I bullied you into it.
Listen, it depends on how what chemistry Lance Moore has with Stafford and how the offense looks, and does Theo Riddick, does Joique Bell get more rushing touchdowns this year?
I got a feeling with this offensive line and everything they've invested into the offensive line.
Smash mouth, yeah, smash it in.
It should be more of a run game, and that should maybe take away some of the touches in the pass game for these wide receivers that we have. So that's what I'm really interested to see. I'm really interested to see how Theo Riddick gets used next season. Interested to see what happens with Abdullah, how that works out. What happens with Joik Bell? Is he going to be as productive of a back as he was the year prior? I really want to see what that offensive line is going to look like. How do you see Theo Riddick actually getting used, though? Because depth charts are coming out now after OTAs, and they've got him as the third back. And at certain times last year, he was the most productive running back on this team.
Right now, he's going to have to show a little bit more based on the fact that Abdullah came in as a draft pick and a higher draft pick, second round. So he's going to have to come in and really wow everybody to kind of move up. I think Amir Abdullah is going to get a lot of chances to show what he can do. And Theo Riddick's going to just have to wow everybody and really be productive on third down. And when he's in there, really move the chains and not be inconsistent, not be so up and down. So right when the season starts, Joik Bell is going to be the featured back. Amir Abdullah is going to get a lot of screen passes, and they're going to try to be a much more balanced offense. So Theo Riddick's going to have to bring it. Like everyone else on the Lions, I think that's what they're looking for the players to do, is just come out, earn your spot, and if he does well and he is productive, he'll get on the field. He'll beat out Abdullah if he's willing and motivated and he's got more experience. He should be okay. He'll get his touches. He'll get his chance. Does he capitalize on it? That's the question.
Theo Riddick's in a really tough spot this season. He sits there. He has a very productive season last year. Joik Bell has been anointed the number one back, and then they go ahead and they draft a guy like Amir Abdullah. So now Theo Riddick's got to sit there and fight and claw for every ball he gets to touch. He's in a tough spot. I see him being utilized as that change of pace back. I don't see him getting as many touches as he got last year, which kind of sucks because you were hoping that progression would kind of go up a little bit. But I think Joik Bell's going to get probably 65% of the we'll go 60% of the touches. Abdullah's probably going to get 30, and I think the other 10 is going to be split between Theo Riddick and whoever else is platooning in that backfield at the time. So he's got an upward hill.
It's coming closer. The season's coming closer. Training camp, preseason on Fox. It's going to be an exciting time. I'm looking forward to it so much. I can't wait. I'm getting that itch. You know, I found myself glued to the NFL Network's coverage of Tom Brady's 10-hour sit-down chat trying to defend himself from Deflategate. Still going on. But
how do you talk about that for 10 hours?
Exactly. That's what when I was thinking about that, when I heard the updates on the radio, I'm like, it should really just be about an hour. Did you do it? No. Okay. Here's the evidence that says you did. What happened? What are you talking about? What are you going through, the history of football?
Right.
You know, the history of how you make a football. I mean, how hard is it to decipher text back and forth? Okay, here's the text that we got. What say you? No, I didn't do it. Da-da-da-da-da. Boom, 2, 3. Okay, Max, you want to elaborate further? You want to pinpoint a little bit? What are you asking him a question, and then he has to, turn to his lawyer, consult, come back? Everything's slow.
It should be a 10-minute conversation. Brady needs to go in there and be like, look, I'm the best quarterback in the league right now. You've got nobody better than me. I don't care about Peyton and his robotic hip and his weak arm. Who else you got? You got nobody else. It's me. It's me alone. It's my team, the Patriots. We carry the torch for this league. It's me. 4 games, make it go poof.
Now,
make it go away.
His vigorous defense of his innocence, the fact that he's been willing to, fight this, does it make you think that, hey, change your mind a little bit about his guilt or innocence? You know, when you are innocent of something and people are saying you did it, you fight and say, no, I didn't do it. No, I didn't do it. He may not accept a reduction in suspension to 2 games or 1 game. He may fight this all the way and say, listen, I didn't do it. I'm upset. Take this away.
Here's the thing. I think he was guilty the entire time. But that being said, what they did to that Indianapolis Colts team, just because you take a couple PSI out of a football, doesn't allow you to sit there and run the score up the way they did and to handle the game the way they did. I don't think him deflating the footballs had any effect on that game. I think that game was going to be determined the way it ended up. I think the Patriots were going to win. And I don't think there's anything you can do about it. And you have all these other players who come out and say that, hey, we do the same exact thing. We tamper with the footballs. We mess with them. There was a long snapper who just came out 2 days ago and said that he carried around a safety pin or a paper clip, and he would deflate footballs before he would snap the ball. This happens all the time. It happens all the time. I just think that it was on such a large stage, it maybe got a little egregious. That being said, I don't think it had any bearing on the game. I don't think it changes the score. Tom Brady slices up that Indianapolis Colts defense time and time again, even if that ball had 45 PSI and he was throwing a damn Michelin tire around. I think Tom Brady was that good and that honed in. And that Indianapolis Colts defense was that bad. I don't think it made a damn bit of difference.
It's just one of those things where now when you talk about the affecting competitive balance, the league has to maintain its integrity, and you can't question whether the league is legit or not. So
what I really think a lot of this is, it's a lot of politicking by Goodell. He's sitting there, and Roger Goodell is trying to show that he is even-handed and as fair at disciplining players that are white as he is with the black players. That's exactly what this is. It comes back down to race, which I think is stupid at this day and age. There's no reason that it should come down to this. Greg Hardy got 10 games because he smacked the crap out of his girlfriend, beat her up, threw her on a set of guns that you could basically arm an entire city with, and it could hold down the fort against parts of the U.S. Navy, and he tried choking her with a phone cord. That's brutal. That's awful. You are a horrible human being, Greg Hardy. You're an awful man. You're disgusting. I think 10 games kind of fits the punishment there. I'm just saying, you tried choking her with a phone cord, bro. And on top of that, you had just armaments for days. You are a bad person. It's okay. I get it. You're a football player. You're scum. It's fine. You're still a bad person. Tom Brady deflates a football? You're going to give him 4 games? It doesn't make any sense. The whole thing with Adrian Peterson, I felt like I was kind of just a weirdo because I was over there and I was like, yeah, he beat the kid with a switch. Who cares? He disciplines his kid. That's good. His kid's not going to grow up and be some psychotic bastard who goes into a church and shoots people. He knows where the power is. He knows where that heavy hand comes. He disciplines his kid. Good for him. I don't see what the hell the big deal is. Why are you going to sit there and you're going to give him 15 games? I think it's all stupid. I think it's all dumb. The punishments have to fit the crime. And I think that's what the NFL's got away from. And I think now it's all very retroactive and very reactive. You're not trying to establish what's best for the game. And sorry about my rant. I'll get off my soapbox now. Sorry.
It's all good.
You give me the wrap up signs. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I'm happy to let you. We're happy to let you rant.
It all just makes me upset. Roger Goodell.
Well, speaking of upset, right now the Tigers are getting trounced still. Right, it's about 5-0.
Oh, can I get that Buck Farmer reset? What's up with Buck Farmer?
And
yeah, I'll get you a score here. Hold up one sec. Buck Farmer's your boy.
Jock, what's interesting is Brad Ausmus has been drawing some ire from the fans because
7-2.
JD Martinez is hot. He has a little bit of a struggle in a game and he takes him out. That was very weird. Miguel Cabrera in Wednesday's game, Brad Ausmus decided that Miggy needed a day off. So he sits Miggy on the bench for Wednesday's game versus the Tribe. People out there are questioning it. We're taking phone calls at 248-230-4567. We want to know what people's thoughts are regarding Miggy being benched. A lot of people want to see Miggy play because he's a vital part of this offense, and should he been given the day off? We'll see. We'll see what the callers have to say. Fans are upset that Miggy was benched. It's a situation where people wanted to see the Tigers continue the offensive rhythm. Versus Cleveland, we dominate. We've been playing well.
We kill Cleveland.
So do you think that's why he did it, is knowing that, the Tigers have great success at the Jake? You know what? They've won a couple games in a row there. He just felt like at this time that it's important to give Miggy a day off.
Yeah. A lot of the things that Brad Ausmus does just makes you scratch your head and say, what? What are you doing? So I think that played into it. He knew that they're playing Cleveland. They've been hot against Cleveland. They've won the last 5 games at the Jake, and they just beat up on Cleveland. So why not give Miggy a day off, spell him? You're coming back against the White Sox. You're going to need to bring everything you got against the White Sox. You got to make up some pace in this division. That was part of the reasoning. That being said, I mean, this is not looking good, man. I mean, they're getting trounced right now by the Indians. But it's hard. It's 8-2. Ryan Rayburn just hit a double.
Listen, it's hard to sweep a team. The Tigers have had amazing success versus Cleveland. They've had really good success versus teams in the AL Central. It's just one of those things where you need to find the right times to bench Miggy. And I'm kind of, when you think about it, when you really step back, you can't play the dude 162 games a year.
You
give him 155 to 158. And this is versus Cleveland. I know the problem is we're 5 games back of Kansas City. They're a team that's not going to lose 5 of 6 games in the foreseeable future. So we want our most valuable player, our best offensive weapon in the game. But Brad has to spell him because, he has had some injuries. He has been nicked up time to time, and he earned it probably by showering that young 11-year-old with gifts. You did good. You get a day off.
My whole thing is, if you really want to give him a day off, why don't you spell him on June 28th? They play the White Sox. It's an afternoon game, so you give him the day off. You don't have a game on Monday, so now you basically doubled up his days off, and you bring him in a late game on Tuesday, 7 o'clock game on Tuesday against Pittsburgh. Why not do something like that? Breaking it up right now in the middle of this series doesn't make any sense for me. Yeah, I know they had a late game the night before. They play an early game now, and then they've got another early game on Thursday. But you have this rhythm going where you're just chewing teams up and you're spitting them out. You've racked up almost 30 runs in 3 games, and now you want to go ahead and you want to spell them for the 4th? Come on. It just doesn't make sense. The things that Brad Ausmus does just make absolutely zero sense, the way he manages. And I know I'm not a manager and you're not a manager, so who am I to be so damn picky? But when I watch him and I watch the things that he does, it pisses me off. It doesn't make any sense the way he handles this staff. I don't understand it. I really don't. It blows my mind. Justin Verlander's got a tight back, right? You're going to let him sit there and pitch 117 pitches in a game that he's getting murdered in? Does that make sense? No. Why don't you pull him a little bit early? Go to your bullpen. Utilize the hands that you got. Help save his back, because now you got to throw in Buck Farmer, who just sat there and got rocked for 5 or 6 runs.
The anger on Twitter is very palpable at our Twitter page, at Detroit Podcast. At Icewater Olson tweets us, I'm much more upset that Ausmus left in Buck for as long as he did and pitched Ryan in relief. Obvious mistakes, bad managing. Chad Russell at Milliman Chad tweets us, yes, I'm at the game and no Miggy. And Shay at Shaylin Alexis 1 tweets us, at Detroit Podcast, about to call in a million times and complain, angry face, angry face, angry face.
Call in, girl. Let us have it. We understand. It doesn't make sense. The things that he does. Then you bench a guy, like you said, like JD Martinez. The guy sits there and he hits 3 home runs, and you're going to sit there and he has a game where he's a little bit off. You're going to put him on the pine? What are you doing? He's been one of your best hitters. He's one of the only guy driving the ball out of the park. It doesn't make any damn sense. The best part about JD Martinez, every time he comes up to bat, almost every 17 at bats, he hits a home run. The guy's doing yeoman's work, doing a great job. And you're going to sit there and you're going to bench him. Why? Doesn't make any sense.
Well, I don't think these things happen haphazardly. Potentially that a meeting took place.
I like how you're pontificating conspiracies right now.
I'm sure
Go ahead.
This probably was a planned day off because exactly of what you said. 1 o'clock game after an evening game, let him get a spell. It's versus Cleveland. It kind of lines up for Miggy to take the game off, and it's really hard to sweep the team. You've won the series. There are some games where you think, well, based on the matchups, we can throw in another player and still get maybe a 3-2 win, but it's just one of those things. I wouldn't have done it. You need the wins right now. I agree with you. You could have done it at a different time. It's just one of those things where you should have potentially played them. Keep the streak going, keep the momentum going, because there's no guarantee that you're going to play well versus the White Sox. You have tough games coming up, and right now, it's one of those things where now we have to look not only with what the Tigers are doing, we got to peek in and scoreboard watch the rest of the summer and see what KC's doing, because it's
and Minnesota. Don't forget about them. Minnesota. They're above us.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And then we have to talk about it. It's one of those things where when you were gone, we talked about it's still an area of concern. The play at third base. Nick Castellanos is struggling immensely. Yes, he's getting RBIs here and there, but he's still batting well under 250. His month of June has been horrific. And then he gets benched for 3 games earlier in the week. You see what Romine's doing. He's a guy that's not an everyday third baseman, but when he's come in, he's kind of put himself in the conversation to say, hey, listen, why are you playing Castellanos? Why has Castellanos not been sent down? You've had players brought up, you've had players sent down, and people are starting to say, why is Nick Castellanos even on the main roster right now? He should be maybe working this stuff out in the minors.
I thought this was something important we should talk about, too, because I had this conversation with my dad, who's a huge Tiger fan. I had a conversation with him about this on Saturday night, and he's like, why isn't Romine in there every single game? Why isn't he there all the time? Castellanos is a bum. And I said, I agree with you. Castellanos is a bum. I think Castellanos is a bust. I think it's time. You almost have to wash your hands of it. Send him down. Let him hope he works it out. And if he does, he gets hot in the minors, maybe bring him back up and see what happens. Hopefully it transitions. But I think he's a bust. But Andrew Romine is not an everyday player. That's the problem. I don't think he has the durability, and I don't think he can put up the same numbers that he has been putting up every single day if you played him like that. Mind you, the guy's got 2 home runs in 3 games, which is his career high. So what's that say about the guy? He doesn't get a lot of time to play. And that's probably for a very good reason. Do you remember Donnie Kelly, baby, DKB? Everybody either really wanted DKB in all the time because when he would go in, he'd do really good things, or he would sit there and they'd play him a few games back to back and he'd just shit all over the bed. And I think that this is kind of the same thing with Andrew Romine. I think if you put him in good spots, he's a very effective player. And I think he does give you your best chance, at least in the field, to win games. Because you know he's not going to screw up and he's not going to botch a play. You know, he'll be able to help turn a double play. Plus, I think that defense on the infield is that much better, especially with the range that Iglesias has and that Romine has, that you can do some different things and you can put on these crazy shifts and not worry about a ball getting up the gap. But at the plate is where you start to scratch your head. And yeah, he's batting almost 80 points higher than Castellanos right now. But does that then take an effect 35 games into a season, 45 games into it, 50 games into the season? Where does that drop off come in at? I think it comes in a hurry when it happens with Andrew Romine. But I do think he gives you your best shot to win games. So you're in a rock and a hard spot. You got to play the guy because Castellanos is a bum.
It's not only that we're watching Castellanos. There are young players in the league that are coming up faster and are successful. I mean, I think I read it either on Bleacher Report or in a Major League Baseball magazine that said the top 25 players ages 25 or under. And there's 25 great players. And the ones that are ranked 20 to 25 are way better than Castellanos. So it's one of those things you can't say, well, he's 23, he's 24, let's give him time. You've had a full season. It's time. Okay, if you want to be average, get your average up to 270. Get some key hits.
Dude, we'll take 250 at this point.
We'll take 250, exactly. But he's going into these prolonged slumps. His at-bats look weak. He's not as aggressive when he's got two strikes, and when the pitcher gets ahead, he's basically an automatic out. It sucks.
It's one of those things, too. If you can bat just above the Mendoza line, it'll be okay, right? We'll accept that. As long as you're not botching plays in the field that are leading to runs being scored against you. And his defense is subpar. His offense is dreadful. So how do you expect to be played? You can't.
Okay.
It doesn't happen.
We got a phone call. Let's see what people are thinking out there at 248-230-4567. Caller, thank you for dialing up the Detroit Sports Podcast. What say you?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
How's it going?
What's up?
Going pretty good. Just watching the Tigers, it's just so inconsistent to watch this team play ball as of late. It's just extremely topsy-turvy. It's up and down. You don't want to get too down and you don't want to get too up, and it's hard to really judge this team. And with the trade deadline coming up, are the Tigers buyers or sellers? It's a tough question.
Very good question. First off, what's your name?
I'm Dan.
Dan, thank you very much for calling us up. Where are you calling us from?
I'm calling from Westside, Michigan.
All right, Dan. Okay, let's look at this objectively. No one thinks that the Tigers are going to be sellers because the payroll is so high. Publicly, if you were to sell off the pieces, you would basically be telling your fan base that we don't believe this team can win. And then you would drop attendance, the Tigers, morale would go down, and you could see a total collapse. If the Tigers are ready to go and ready to make a playoff push, they have to be buyers. They've shown in the past that they want to bring in players. And I know right now the tough part is who are you going to trade and what are you going to bring in? We need a starter. We need bullpen help. We need another left-handed bat. We need a lot of things, but I don't think they're going to be sellers. That would be catastrophic. I'm starting to lean towards maybe they should be and start planning for the future. It's just not going to happen. What do you think?
Yeah, it's tough to really decide, and I'll throw a few names out there that I've been looking at, interested in. One guy's a big-time player who might be extremely difficult to acquire. Another guy might be kind of low-key and might be reasonable. Ben Zobrist. He can play all over the place. He can play in the infield. He can play over the outfield. Right now, yeah, he's kind of not having the best of years if you look at the stat line. And also Evan Longoria. That's a long shot. I know we got David Price last year from the Rays, so the Rays are probably like, oh, you gave us Drew Smalley, who's done for the year, so look at that situation. The Rays might be a little hesitant to trade with the Tigers, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, the reason why we chuckled a little bit is last year at the trade deadline, Adam and I had a podcast where we talked about who should we bring on, and Adam, the Jock Strozinski, he loves himself some Ben Zobrist.
I pined hard for Ben Zobrist. I pined really hard for Ben Zobrist last year. Here's the thing. There's no way that the Rays are giving up Evan Longoria. He's having a career resurrection over there in Tampa Bay. The guy looks outstanding. He's playing great. Plus, he's a leader in that clubhouse. So I don't think the Tigers have any pieces that they could possibly give the Rays to get him here. It's just not going to happen. Ben Zobrist, maybe a change of scenery helps that guy out. Maybe the numbers turn around. Maybe he gets better. I don't see it happen. What I do think is going to happen, though, I think that Dave Dombrowski is going to count on Justin Verlander getting healthy. So that helps shore up your starting rotation. That's a big question mark there. I think he's going to count on Victor Martinez after the All-Star break being healthy and getting hotter, and then that'll help carry some of that lineup and get that batting lineup just kind of warmed up more. And I think bullpen, I think that's what he's going to have to go out there and he's going to have to get. He's going to have to acquire a piece or two for that bullpen, because that bullpen is kind of what blows a lot of these games for us. It doesn't help, that's for damn sure.
As far as the bullpen goes, I think that the Tigers have the same old line of guys every single season. Like you said, it's terrible that you're blowing the games late game, especially like David Price goes in there and he'll pitch a gem, and he hasn't done this in several starts. David Price doesn't go 9, the bullpen will blow it, and it's really, really unfortunate to see something like that happen. And Price is another question if the Tigers can sign Price in the offseason or if Price is going to go with Max Scherzer. In my personal opinion, you cannot let 2 ace pitchers go in 2 seasons. Justin Verlander is coming back. He's coming back. He's got another back issue, arm issues, whatever he's had, ailments, whatever he's doing is banging himself up. It's really sad to see that you gave this guy a big boatload of money and he's not been able to even stay healthy and even stay on the field.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest issue is Justin Verlander right now, that contract. What happens is you look at that contract and you're like, wow, he's making $28 million this year, and the guy's pitched, all of maybe 2 games, 3 games? He's looked awful when he's been out there too. So that makes it really hard to then turn around and give a guy like David Price, who you don't ever want to pay a guy who's 30 years old or getting near 30 that kind of money. But David Price has earned it. So I don't think you even sign David Price. I think you have to let him go like you did with Max Scherzer, because you can't bring these guys in because you've already committed so much money to a guy like Justin Verlander. And it's going to suck because you're going to let a great pitcher go like David Price. I mean, that guy is a stud. We all know he's a stud. And on top of it, he's the only left-handed guy we've got in the rotation right now. So you got to let him go, and you're not going to be able to fill that. I think Dave Dombrowski, this comes back to a few years ago when Dave Dombrowski made bad moves by getting rid of a guy like Doug Fister and trading off large pieces in that starting rotation. Because you got to remember, a few years ago, they had the best starting rotation in all of baseball. And if you look down and you projected it out 3 years, if you didn't change anything, they had the best starting rotation for the next 5-6 years. It looked great. And then Dombrowski got in there and started tinkering with stuff, trading pieces off, brought in Price. Price is going to probably be out the door. You got rid of Scherzer. Verlander can't stay healthy. I really don't know what you have with Alfredo Simon or Simone and Shane Green. You don't really know what you're going to get with those guys because they're so damn inconsistent. And then you got Anibal Sanchez, who's up and down like a roller coaster. After the 6th, 7th inning, you better start biting your nails because it's all nerves at that point. So I don't think you're bringing Price in. I don't think there's any good answer for that starting rotation. I think what you have to do is you're going to have to bolster that bullpen.
Now, Dan, thank you for calling the Detroit Sports Podcast. Let's have some faith. Remember last year how excited we all felt when Price came here. So let's just wait and see, have a little patience, and we'll see how the Tigers will what they'll do around the trade deadline. Thanks for calling. Now we got more phone calls.
Hi, this is Jed calling in. I wanted to say what's up, guys. How you doing?
Jed, what's
up,
going
Jed?
on? You tweeted us. Should the Tigers be buyers or sellers?
I was tweeting at you, and recently my brother actually got drafted by the Texas Rangers in the 20th round. And I've been involved a lot with the whole entire scheme of the draft and kind of what happens as far as Major League development and all that. So as far as keeping David Price, I don't think it'll happen just because the price tag is going to be too big. And if you don't re-sign him, you get another first-round pick, which was similar to what happened with the Tigers this year, not signing Max Scherzer. And if they don't keep Yoenis Cespedes, they receive another first-round pick. They just have to make 2 qualifying offers to him. They'll get 2 draft picks next summer, which I think is better. This team, let's be honest, they're going to be going into the rebuilding stages here shortly. And the more draft picks you have next year is just the start of something new.
Jed, I don't want to cut you off, but I have a quick question for you. Do you feel really confident with what Dave Dombrowski does in the draft? Because I was really underwhelmed the way he drafted this year with the 2 first-round picks that they had. I felt like he reached.
Right. I understand what you're saying there, but you also got to keep in mind, he traded Cameron Maybin, who is quoted to be the next Willie Mays, and he traded Andrew Miller for Miguel Cabrera. I mean, he trades his top prospects, and he gets good Major League talent out of them. So as far as I'm concerned, he may draft poorly, but those guys that he drafts, he trades them for quality Major League pieces.
I understand that. I see what you're saying there. I just don't like the way he's constructing this farm system. So then when we run into a pinch in the middle of the season like now, where you got a guy like Nick Castellanos who's just kind of scuffling along and really bringing down this team, you can't send him to the minors and possibly pull a young star or pull some young talent up and insert it into this lineup. You got to kind of make your way to the trade deadline and then hope you can swing something and then trade away, like you said, maybe a bum piece that everybody's really high on to get something decent in return.
And right, this is another situation where Dombrowski could have traded Nick Castellanos and perhaps a few other minor leaguers for an established third baseman 2 years ago. I've heard rumors that Oakland was extremely interested in Nick Castellanos, and in return, the Tigers would have gotten Josh Donaldson. Hindsight's 20/20, and Dave Dombrowski stuck with his guns, and unfortunately, with the situation, it failed on him. But there's been a lot of good moves that Dave Dombrowski has made that has made this Tiger team a playoff contender. And I mean, these last 4 years have been fun with being in the playoffs and whatnot, but I think it's just a sad reality as a Tiger fan that we're seeing a lot of these guys go and the rebuilding stages are upon us.
So do you think the window is closed, or do you think there's still a crack where they might have a shot at winning the championship?
I think there's a small crack. I think if you're going to do it, it's got to be this. It's going to probably be this year. Or I don't think there's going to be a chance next year just with Price being gone. But this year, it'll be extremely tough to do. I mean, you got to hope that Victor Martinez is healthy or he gets his stroke back in play, and then you got to hope that Verlander can give you. I'm happy with Verlander right now, honestly, at a 3.3 ERA. And if he can do that with me, I'm happy, even though it's outrageous that he's getting paid $28 million, because last year just wasn't acceptable.
Right.
And anything better than that, you're kind of happy with.
Jed, thanks for dialing us up. Let's just hope that the Tigers can turn it around, and we're all waiting to see if the Tigers are going to be buyers or sellers. Thanks for being a supporter, and call us up anytime. Great stuff from the callers today.
Yeah.
The Tigers are a hot-button topic. It's one of those things where I don't think we're being overly critical, because the Tigers right now they're far enough into the season where you can honestly assess them and say, listen, this team may not be as good as we all thought they were. And it's not wrong to be a little bit critical of this team, because we're not just watching and analyzing the Tigers this year. We're starting now back from about 2006, from the Leland era on, and we've been waiting 10 years. And so when you look at it in that perspective, it's okay to be a little bit antsy. It's okay to be a little bit frustrated when your second-year manager who has no experience and the team goes through an 8-game losing streak and you have players who are struggling who aren't getting benched or sent down. It's one of those things where it's okay. We all understand this is a smart fan base, and it's okay to be a little bit critical. You don't want the fans to be apathetic. You don't want them to not care about the team. You don't want them to not worry anymore or not dial up podcasts, sports shows to talk about the team. Because if you get this, you get the dial tone, it's bad news, and that could happen if they lose Price, Cespedes. It's going to be, and Greg Henson, who came on our podcast, said, prepare for a long decade of Tigers ills, because when you look deeper at the minors, there's much there.
There's nothing in there.
And
there's absolutely nothing there.
There's lots of family members of former Tigers that are in the system. It's like, oh, okay, the family members of Gibson, the family members of Castellanos.
Leland. Yeah, it just, Avila. It just, the whole minor league system and the way they do their drafting really frustrates me. Something else that I noticed that's kind of bothered me, and I don't know if now's the time to really bring it up on this podcast discussing this, but I'm just going to throw it out there, and you give me your take, and if anybody's out there listening, they can give us their take as well. So when they're going through these slumps that they've been going through, and things are just kind of falling apart for the team, and I know baseball's a different sport because it's all ebbs and flows. It's long droughts followed by extremely large hot stretches, and in the end, it all balances out. But a guy like Miguel Cabrera, the guy who is the face of your organization, the guy who has been here seems like since he was ever drafted. We know that's not the case. He was originally drafted by Florida, but it seems like he's been here forever. Why does he not seem to take on more of a leadership role in that clubhouse? When Victor Martinez goes away, it seems like everything kind of falls apart in splinters. And then when Victor Martinez comes back, it's like the ship gets righted, everything kind of works its way out. And we've heard stories years ago about how Victor Martinez was kind of the guy who controlled the locker room, held everything together. When stuff kind of hit the fan, he was the guy who was the voice of reason. He would step up and say things, and he would keep everything together. Why hasn't Miguel Cabrera picked any of this up and done this? It's hard for a pitcher to do it because he's only out there every 5 days. So you look at a guy who is, I would say, the face of your organization, would you not? The guy who's on TV giving bats and batting gloves and balls to the opposition's fans, and everybody the following day is raving about him on Facebook, ESPN, Twitter, talking about how he's a great guy. But you don't ever hear the story about how he steps up in the locker room and he pulls it all back together when it all starts to unravel and fall apart.
It's not that,
and that bothers me.
Yeah, it's not that easy to be a leader. You know, he leads by example. What more can you say? He's on base a lot. He hits key home runs. He's very exciting. Look what he did yesterday with that young baseball fan. He is a player that's very jovial, likes to have a good time, and I just don't think he's one of those guys that likes to bark at people. I think it's just in his nature. You know, you have some people who have that fiery personality that may be willing to go up to a player and chew him out. I don't know if Miggy's that type of player in the locker room. I think he's more jovial, likes to keep things light, and doesn't want to kind of ruffle the feathers, especially if there's some guys in there who are maybe a little bit more edgy and more willing to go down and talk to someone maybe in a stern way. I don't think he's that guy. I don't think he's...
You know what's a good time? Winning's a good time.
Winning's a great time,
Winning's a good time. That's what's a good time.
Yeah, Tigers lost Wednesday's game 8-2. I love when I get updates
Buck
from
Farmer, bro.
I love when Detroit News tweets me at my updates. They're like, Indians rough up Tigers pitching in the series finale. They always send out some of the nice comments like that. Like, oh, well, it's okay. You can't win every game. You can't win every game. They won 2 of 3, and the Tigers going forward need to play better. They need to be more consistent, and we need to get JV back healthy. And Brett Ausmus, hey, it may behoove you. Yeah, JV may be like, yeah, I can go 120. I can throw 117 pitches. He may nod his head at you, but a smart manager would not let his horse, coming off of his certain injuries, coming off of what he was going through, throw 117 pitches in his second start. Yeah, he's going to have back spasms. And we've talked about it. Every pitch potentially could be his last this season. You should realistically let him go 100 pitches or less his first couple of starts. 117, you stuck it.
Game.
Yeah.
It's only his second game of the season. Like, what are you doing? It just makes absolutely no sense. He's coming off of a sore tricep, coming off of core muscle surgery the year before, and you're going to sit there and you're going to hang him out there for 117 pitches, and then he gets roughed up in the 117 pitches, and you're going to come back and you're going to say, well, his stuff looked pretty good. Really? Yeah, it looked good to the other team, too. Was blasting the ball out of the damn park. Now he's got a sore back. Now you got to bring in Buck Farmer, who just sits there and implodes. Stupid stuff, man. Stupid stuff. It just things that
infuriating. Back to the grind. No, look, you got that look again. Oh, let me change up the vibe. Let's take a quick break. Danny Knobler is going to dial us up and he'll give me some perspective in a call that we recorded a little bit earlier, and he will kind of give us some perspective on the Tigers, and then we'll come back and quickly talk about the Pistons draft, which will take place tonight as you hear this. Stay with us. Doc and Jock Podcast 98, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Definitely check out the guys at the Detroit Sports Nation, DetroitSportsNation.com. Great website. They are unbelievable. They are killing it on Facebook. Give them a like at their Facebook page, Detroit Sports Nation, and definitely check out their website, DetroitSportsNation.com. Our collaboration with them has been excellent, and they continue to be a strong presence here on the podcast because they bring the noise and they have great content. So thank you guys again. We can't thank you enough.
You're the future of our business, and I know when you guys have a podcast like this, our future is in good hands.
You got to check out their stuff. I mean, I'm really impressed by it. You guys have probably one of the better ones I've seen in the country.
Wow.
In a short period of time, you've done good work. Look at me kissing your face.
I know.
All right, Detroit Sports Podcast listeners, on the line, he's a veteran baseball writer and the author of Numbers Don't Lie, the biggest numbers in Detroit Tigers history. A great read. I read it myself. Danny Knobler joins the Detroit Sports Podcast. Danny, welcome. Thanks for taking a few moments of your day out there in New York to chat with us.
No problem. Good to be with you. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, the Tigers right now, right in the middle of a series versus the Indians. They are playing great at the Jake. The Tigers seem to always have success there.
Yeah, you know what? One thing that's interesting about the Tigers, not that the Indians have been their biggest competition so far this year, but one thing that's interesting over this 4-year run when they've won 4 straight divisions is that they've done very well within the division, and especially against whatever team ends up being their closest pursuer in the division. Now, we'll see how that plays out the rest of the year against the Royals and Twins, who are the teams that have gotten off better starts this year. but it certainly followed through against the Indians, and one of the real reasons, among others, that the Indians haven't been part of the race so far this year.
Yeah, and right away we're starting to look at a Tigers team whose offense is a little bit up and down. We're still trying to find out the answers as to really what is the true nature of this offense, but this offense is really picked up with Victor Martinez returning back from injury.
And I think that was predictable. Look, every team has injuries, and the Tigers underperformed during the time Victor Martinez was hurt and when he was there playing earlier in the season, but also not really healthy. They underperformed even with the players they had. But even at that time, I said, and I know plenty of other people said, this was a significant loss to them to not have him. The middle of the Tigers order, when you have Miguel Cabrera followed by Victor Martinez, followed by Yoenis Cespedes, is a middle of the order that can match up with anybody in the game. When you take one of those guys out, obviously it'd be even worse if you took Miguel Cabrera out, but if you take Victor Martinez out, then it's going to make a big difference. And he doesn't have to be as good as he was last year when he was really outstanding, one of the better players in the game. He doesn't have to be every bit as good as that to be a big impact. And already, and there's no way he's at that level yet, given all the time he's missed. But he does appear to be healthy, and already we've seen that it can make a big impact. They haven't won every game, certainly, since he came back, and they had the two games, the first two in New York. They didn't pitch well enough to win, and they really didn't the first night. They didn't score enough runs to win. But at the same time, they're a different team with him, and I think eventually they'll be a different team with Justin Verlander, too, although that hasn't yet proven out in his first two starts.
Yeah, somebody who's had a resurgence as of late, J.D. Martinez, marked by a 3-home-run game out there in your neck of the woods versus the Yankees. Talk about J.D. Martinez and his impact for this Tigers in the lineup.
Well, what a great pickup last year. I mean, look, he's been a great help to that team and gives them a chance to lengthen the lineup. And one of the things having Victor Martinez in there does is it means that you don't rely as much on guys like J.D. Martinez, but that when they contribute, and obviously there's going to be, maybe now there won't be another game exactly like the one he had Sunday, but there's going to be other games where he's really successful. Well, when he does that, now it's a big addition. And the difference being that when Victor was out, then there was real pressure on guys like J.D. Martinez and Cespedes and down the order to try to make up for that. Now, with Victor in there, they're further down in the order, and when they contribute, it's a huge, huge plus, even when they don't contribute to the matter of 3 home runs in one game.
A player that we've all been watching, hoping that he can be productive, is Nick Castellanos. He was sat for 3 games by Brad Ausmus, and Romine started at third base. Do you think Nick Castellanos will benefit from that break, and what does he need to do to kind of turn things around? I know that he swings at a lot of pitches not in his zone. He's not a great hitter with 2 strikes. Hopefully, with the days off, he can come back and be a productive force.
It's certainly possible. He's going through what a lot of hitters go through at some stage early, often in their career, where it gets harder. And they do start pressing, and when you press, a lot of times you do swing at pitches out of the zone. Better hitters do it too. Look, one of the reasons that Miguel Cabrera, he's the best hitter in the game, but one of the ways that he has gotten even better is understanding which pitches he can handle, understanding that they're going to try to pitch around him. Now, they're not pitching around Nick Castellanos, not with his average, but they still, if they think they can get him out of the strike zone, then they're going to keep doing it. And he's got to learn to adapt to that. It's very, very hard. Look, hitting is hard. And Miguel Cabrera, guys like that make it look easy, but it's very hard. He should do better than he's done, Castellanos. But whether he's going to be able to overcome it, it's a great question. But some guys do, some guys don't. And that's Brad Ausmus is trying to do different things with him, including taking him out of there for a few days. We've seen it. You look around baseball, other managers have done it with other hitters. Give them a few days off. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And the guy who's going to determine whether it works is Nick Castellanos himself.
Now, going forward, a lot of people are speculating that Dave Dombrowski will not be selling off the pieces at the trade deadline, that the Tigers are likely to look to add a piece or two to try to add to this team to help them with the playoff push should they make it. Do you think a starting pitcher would be an area to look at, or should they target a bullpen relief help for this obviously struggling at times bullpen?
I think either one could help. I think part of that depends on how they feel about Verlander. If the indications of how he's thrown in the first couple times continue, and if Anibal Sanchez, if his revival continues, look, at that point, you're looking at three really, really good starters atop the rotation. No question they could use another pitcher. But I think if that continues, I think there's a real thought they could use help in front of Soria in the bullpen. Now, a lot of other teams could use help too. The advantage of looking for that is those players don't cost as much in terms of salary, or usually in terms of what you have to give up. The disadvantage is there's a lot of competition for those guys. And as they saw last year when they traded for Soria and when they had signed Joe Nathan, even when you get a guy who has had some success, it's not always a guarantee that it's going to continue. But yeah, I do think that's an area that they will be looking at. And I don't think there's really any chance of, barring just major injuries, major catastrophe, I don't think there's any chance you're looking at a team that's selling. Look at where they are in the race for the playoffs. They're more than in it. And also look at where they are in the state of the franchise. You've got two guys, very significant guys who are free agents. Now, I know people would say, well, those are guys you could sell off. But this is a year they still have a chance to win. And it's going to be tougher next year for them. Not that they can't, but they're going to have to really rework the roster, because chances are they're not going to be able to re-sign David Price. Chances are they're not going to be able to re-sign Cespedes. Maybe they can. Maybe they can use that money and send someone else. But it's going to be difficult. They have a team right now that's still built to win. They haven't played as well as they'd like to during the first part of the season. Part of that is due to a couple significant injuries. Part of it is just due to some underperformance. But there's a lot of time left, and it's a very talented team. There's no reason that they wouldn't try to do what they can to win with this group.
Danny Knobler, longtime baseball writer and author of Numbers Don't Lie, the biggest numbers in Detroit Tigers history. Danny, it was a great book to read, very entertaining. What was your inspiration to write this book going into it?
Well, I had wanted to do a book. When last summer we were talking about things, I talked to my publisher, Triumph Books, and they like to do different series, and they came to me with this idea and said, would you be interested in it? And I said, I looked at it for a while, looked at what they were looking at, and I said, you know what, I can make that work into something that I could really enjoy and that I think I could not only do a good job with, but come up with something that would be interesting to people. And so they gave me a lot of freedom. They had the idea of the general format, but they gave me a lot of freedom in how I would put it together and what I would include and not include. And I had a lot of fun looking back through things that I remembered through the years I covered the Tigers and the years since when I watched them as a national baseball writer, but also in the years before. Names in some cases that I've heard a lot about but maybe didn't know as much about. In some cases, names that I knew quite a bit about but maybe could find another interesting story about, and really enjoyed that process. The Tigers have quite a history, and I think everybody who follows them knows some of that history, and hopefully I was able to tell them even more, remind them of some things they knew but maybe didn't remember as well, and maybe tell them some stories they hadn't heard before.
Were there any fun facts or interesting tidbits that you came across that you had not known in your research that you came across?
You know, one of the fun things was when I was on the Tigers beat, every time a pitcher would have a bad game, we'd look back and see if it was the worst game ever. And every time we'd know, no, it wasn't, because there was this guy named Aloysius Travers who had this unbelievable game where he gave up more than 20 runs in one game. And I kind of knew the story of that game, but I didn't know all the details of it. And I was able to find actually an interview with him before he died. This is 90 years ago he had this game. But what happened in the story of that game? And I knew that game was a game where the Tiger players went on strike, really, for one game as a protest against the suspension Ty Cobb got suspended for going into the stands in New York, and the next game was in Philadelphia, and the Tiger players refused to play unless Cobb was allowed to play, which he wasn't. And I knew that, but I didn't know exactly how this guy, Aloysius Travers, ended up on that team. And I was able to find the story and put it in the book.
You can buy Danny's book at Amazon, and if you go through Amazon, you can click through DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Definitely show Danny support. It's a great read. Are there any future projects in the works or any idea storylines that you have in your mind potentially brewing in there?
Oh, no question. I don't have a book I'm working on, but I've talked with the people at Triumph about several different ideas, and I think there's a real chance we'll come up with something, if not to come out next summer, then to come out after that. But I think there will be, and in the meantime, I'm writing regularly. I'm now contributing regularly at Bleacher Report. I still do some stories every now and then for ESPN. I do some stories for other people. I'm still writing actively and working ahead, coming up with the next book, because I think there will be one.
You can follow Danny at Danny Knobler on Twitter. He's been kind enough to give us a few minutes chatting Tigers and his new book. Thank you so much, Danny. We look forward to chatting in the future.
No problem. Good talking to you.
Danny Knobler, breaking down the Detroit Tigers. You know what? There was a funny interaction there. I messaged him and I said, "Hey, come on the podcast. Let's talk Tigers." And he's like, "Okay, do you mind if there's any New York background noise?" And when we called, there was like fire trucks going off, and it was interesting. Yeah, he's out there in New York, and I was very fascinated that he gave us some time out there in New York, the city life. He was a good dude, and thank you, Danny Knobler, for coming on the podcast. We look forward to future chats.
Did you hear any angry cabbies in the background?
No, I think he was higher up probably, or he was maybe in an apartment or doing something. Gotcha. But yeah, he was higher up, but you could hear the fire trucks in the background. He's like, yeah, that's New York City life. Danny Knobler, great book. It's a good book. Numbers don't lie, and if you pick it up, definitely it's a good book. Very affordable, $12. If you go to DetroitSportsPodcast.com, click through the Amazon banner, show us a little love, get his great book, and help him and help us. Good stuff. And like I said, everyone's thinking, the callers and Danny Knobler, that the Tigers should not be sellers. Although, in my opinion, if they continue to be far back in the standings, it may behoove them to maybe retool with someone, maybe a JD, maybe a Justin Verlander, if someone will take them off our hands. It's just one of those things where the Tigers do need to start looking at the future while at the same time looking to bolster this current roster. It's a tough job. And Dave Dombrowski definitely does not have an easy job of it going forward. It's tough.
He's made his own mess. I don't feel bad for that guy. He's made a disaster out of this minor league system, and parts of this roster is just overinflated. Just, frustration.
All right. It's Thursday. Tonight, the NBA draft will take place, and the Pistons hold the number 8 spot. So we'll wrap up this podcast kind of breaking down who we want, who we like. I hopped on a podcast the other night, kind of broke down a little bit of who I thought the Pistons should take. And a lot of people are liking, in their mock drafts, Devin Booker. They think that at 8 he'll fit in as a shooting guard. But in my opinion, Devin Booker doesn't really make sense because you got Jody Meeks, you got KCP. Jody Meeks is in the second year of his 3-year contract. I think he signed a 3-year, $19.5 million deal. He's in the second year. I think the organization has faith in KCP that he's going to take the next step. A lot of different pieces going out there. Or everyone in the organization is like, please, please let Hezonja fall to number 8.
What?
Everyone is, they're in love with him. They're resigned to the fact that Hezonja is not going to be there. I think he's going to be drafted 7th.
I love how everybody's high on this guy. As the draft is built, it's just, this guy is just shot up everybody's draft boards. But
Porzingis, I think, projects to be a better player, and he projects to be someone that's going to probably have a better career than Hezonja. And I just say stay away because
I don't want either of those dudes.
Right, while you're away, Ilyasova was we got Ersan Ilyasova.
Yeah, I seen that.
It's okay. It's a good move. It's a decent move. He can
shoot the 3. He's that prototypical guy that Stan Van Gundy likes. He's got a good 3-point field goal percentage. He's a long body. The guy can play some defense. It'll work out. That's what Stan Van Gundy likes for his system.
Yeah, and I've done some research, and he's not a sexy pick, but I like Sam Deckard from Wisconsin. He's got an NBA-ready body, can play offense and defense, is very versatile. And when you look back, I was definitely tuned in to the NCAA tournament, as most people were. He played just as well as Frank Kaminsky did. He was one of the pivotal players that allowed them to make that deep run, falling just short to Duke. So if we got Sam Deckard, I would be okay. A lot of people are saying, well, that's a little bit high to get him. A lot of people say, well, maybe Stanley Johnson. And a lot of people in the organization after the workout really like Justice Winslow. And they fits that
That's
need.
my dude.
That's your dude?
That's who I want.
Well,
if he's there, I think Piston Nation goes insane because I think he's a great fit. If he's not there, I think you start those rumors about possibly trading back and all that talk about moving back in the draft. I think that starts to bubble up a little bit because I do think that they were impressed with Frank Kaminsky. If they can maybe move back a few spots, pick him up somewhere right around 12 to 14, I think they do that if Justice Winslow's not there.
Why? Vinny and the crew over there at the Motor City Sports.
I know they don't want white
basketball players.
I know.
I don't. Kaminsky would be okay. I don't think he puts butts in the seats. It's a two.
I don't think he puts butts in the seats either. But you know what does? Winning cures all. That's the theme of this podcast today. Winning cures all.
You win with Frank Kaminsky?
I think you can. I think he gives you options because he can either play the 4 or he can play the 5, and he can stretch out the defense because he can shoot the 3 ball. Every year, if you watch the way he's projected, every year he's gotten better at shooting the 3. And there are parts of his games that he's developed over the course of time. So he shows the aptitude to be able to learn and to be able to create his own shot and to work on getting better, which is what you want to see. You don't like these guys who come in and think they know everything right off rip, and then they're out there just spinning their wheels and they're hurting your team. I think Frank Kaminsky gives you a chance. If he comes in, if they move back and they pick him up in the draft, he gives you a chance to win immediately because you can put him next to Andre Drummond down low. So now you've got 2 big towers down there. Let Drummond play the center. Kaminsky can go out to the baseline and just jack threes all day. He's going to hit 39% of them, maybe closer to 37% of them. But either way, it's still a really good thing, you know. And you got Andre Drummond cleaning up the mess down low. I think it works out. I think it can work out.
Are there any players that the Pistons are looking at that would draw some boo birds from you?
I don't think I'm sold on Stanley Johnson.
Yeah, young and inconsistent.
Yeah. There was a lot of talk too when he was at Arizona. He had some issues with teammates and just different things about him that I'm just kind of like, do you really want that? Is that really good? I don't want any of the European players. I don't want them. I feel like Darko has permanently scarred all of us. And I know that's not how you're supposed to draft, and you shouldn't draft the team that way. What you see on a YouTube video, like me and you can go out in your backyard, right? And we can play ball. We can put together a sweet-ass YouTube video, and we could look like we should be drafted in first overall. The thing is that you don't realize is that we just bricked 59 of those shots to make that one for the YouTube video.
Editing.
Right. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, have you ever seen a video where the player like bricks all the shots? No. The video is a hype video.
Right. So I just...
Yeah, no,
I don't.
Should not.
No.
Even if Hazonia is there, trade him. Trade the pick.
Yeah.
Move down.
Move back.
I don't think they're going to do that. It's really not something that happens too often. If the Pistons make a move, because there was some talk that the Pistons may be in talks with the Knicks, the organization kind of poo-pooed that. They may move up to number 4 and get a player, maybe make a move and move Brandon Jennings and maybe get the guy that they really, really want. If they move up to get Hazonia, I'll be devastated. But if they move up to get the player that they want, it's going to...
Who's the guy that they want? Do you know? Do you have any insight?
I only know the position. They need the small forward. They need a starting small forward who can consistently shoot the ball. And that's why Sam Decker's the guy that is the best fit at that position. He can shoot consistently. He can create his own shot, and he has the potential to be a guy that makes big shots.
So you think it's Sam Decker then?
I don't think they're going to do that. No, I do. I think it's going to be Justice Winslow or Devin Booker, Stanley Johnson, one of those 3. But I like Decker. I like him a lot. But here's the part that I kind of heard over the last couple of days in talks, and it makes sense. I want the Pistons to get a guy that can shoot and contribute now.
Mm-hmm.
SVG
and at eight, they're in a prime spot to do something like that.
Right. But SVG's got a 5-year deal. He knows that it's not likely that he's going to be fired. He's going to have some time to build the team that he wants. So he may take a player like a Stanley Johnson as a flyer because he might have upside in the future. That's what's tough is that we may have to wait another couple seasons if Greg Monroe leaves, if Brandon Jennings has a slow recovery, if Reggie Jackson is still a little bit slow to learn the system. I'm just not patient anymore. I'm just not in the position at watching the Pistons to be like, okay, let's wait another season. They need to be in the playoffs. They need to be consistently playing well, and they need to shoot the ball. I don't know. See, that's what I don't know about basketball is there aren't that many guys like Steph Curry that when they shoot the ball, you know it's going in.
Yeah.
I don't like the whole...
This is like the first time we agree on a whole bunch of stuff. Like,
do we become best friends again?
Favorite non-pornographic magazine to masturbate to? Good Housekeeping. If you were a chick, who's the one guy you would sleep with?
John Stamos.
What? Did we just become best friends?
Yup.
Do you want to go do karate in the garage?
Yup.
Yeah, no, I'm not happy with the whole SVG style of like, hey, let's get all these guys that can shoot threes because there's not. 40% clip. That's an effective, high-paid 3-point shooter.
Yeah,
I don't like that. I like it. I like the more. I like mid-range game. I like the post. I like getting a dominant center. I like guys that can pull up and shoot threes. But I don't like that being the focus. I don't like the new NBA. And you know what? The last 5 teams were all super effective 3-point shooting teams.
Right.
I don't like the Pistons being like that.
Here's the thing, though. What I think Stan Van Gundy wants to do, and I think what his system allows him to do, is it allows him to stretch and space the floor out well. So you don't have guys right on top of each other like you get when Greg Monroe's in there and Andre Drummond's in there. Those guys are both battling in the paint, and they're on the same damn team. You know what I'm saying? So you spread the floor out. You get effective guys who can shoot almost a 40% clip from 3. I know you don't like that, but that is good in today's NBA.
Well,
you have a big man down low who can sit there and battle for boards. Well, that's what it is.
Here's the double-edged sword. You're taught as a basketball player that if you miss, just keep shooting. That's so right. Reggie would come down the court. Oh, he's open for 3. Brick. And when they're off, they're just off. And then when Josh Smith, he was a prototype.
That guy.
He would refuse to post up. And he had a strength in the post-up game. Mm-hmm. He would shoot threes, brick after brick after brick. He was shooting so many bricks that before he even pulled up, you'd hear the groans and the because you knew that's all he wanted to do. And the dude's making bank. He got paid big-time money because he could maybe make 4 of 10. Maybe. That's on a good night.
That's like when nobody defending him or a hand in his face.
Yeah, I don't like that kind of stuff. I just think that's what the new NBA looks like because of what Golden State did. It's going to be tough to execute that. So,
all right, let me kick a rumor at you real quick, okay? So this was flying around, and I was on Twitter earlier this morning, and late last night I was just kind of bebopping around. Anyways, there's been talks about possibly like a sign and trade with your boy G. Monroe for DeMarcus Cousins.
Yes, I like that.
You like Boogie?
I like Boogie. He's a beast.
I like Boogie too. Boogie's a head case though.
Yeah, very much.
He's a nut job. If you think Dwight Howard's bad, Boogie might stab you.
Yeah, no, he's a good player. He's dominant. He's one of the few players that you can say, hey, you can build an inside game around, and he can do some damage. It was interesting in that the last couple times I went to the Palace, it was against Sacramento. And
you got to see him up close and personal.
Up close and personal. He's a beast. Yeah. Very, very good size, very agile, very good player. He's got touch around the rim. And it's one of those things where it's tough nowadays for centers to even make those shots because what defenses do is they collapse in the post, and all centers have to do is kick out to the open guy for 3. That's why more teams are shooting it, is because on defense, it's real simple. You just double the center, you give him a tougher look, the center has to pass it out. That's why there's no dominant center like Shaq or Hakeem Olajuwon in this day and age. You got the centers who want to shoot threes. It's a new way of looking at basketball. I'm just not sure I'm down with it yet. I'm still an old curmudgeon, and I like the old-fashioned style of basketball. But if Stan Van, I have trusted him still. It was chinked a little bit.
Is this in Stan we trust?
For season 2 only.
For season 2 only.
Season 2 only.
There's an asterisk by it.
We said it on the Motor City Rant podcast that comes out every Mondays. Get to the playoffs this year, or your seat needs to be hot, because it's the East. There aren't too many dominant teams in the East. You should be able to get that top 8 spot. And I really do think
you should be able to get a top 5 spot in the East. Let's be honest.
No kidding.
It's so bad. So bad.
Now, I kicked around an idea and I got shot down by the guys. I say, let's just bottom this shit out and let's just have a horrible season. Another way of looking at it is, why not take a season off, win 20 games, get that first pick, win 18 games? Listen, 76ers did it for years, and they got high picks. We're not talking about steady progress, get to the 7th, 8th seed, and, da-da-da. I'm ready to get to that next level. Let's just bottom it out.
There's no guarantee if you tank, you get the best player. There's no guarantee because it's a draft lottery.
Yeah, but you have a higher chance.
You have a higher chance, but
first or second,
there's no guarantee.
Yeah, and I know I'm not certain who's coming out next year, but I think it's time. Basically, the point is this. Maybe not bottoming out. I want a superstar.
You want a transcendent player is what you want.
I want a superstar.
And the only way that the Pistons
Palace
will get that is by drafting him. There's no way that they'll be able to trade for somebody or get somebody in here by free agency.
Right.
So you have to draft that transcendent player.
And
I understand that. And I totally get where you're coming from. I think it's a little bit different, though. I think Stan Van Gundy has a plan. This is the one thing that we can say about Stan Van Gundy that we couldn't say about anything that was underneath the Joe Dumars regime after Larry Brown. He has a plan. He has a system that he wants to run. He knows what works in it, and he knows the players that are out there, and he has a pulse for the players. The only reason things kind of blew up for him in Orlando was because Dwight Howard's a nut job. It's a total head case. Dwight Howard didn't want to be in Orlando anymore, so he basically forced Stan Van Gundy out, then forced his way out, ended up in L.A., forced his way out of L.A., and ended up in Houston. Even in Houston, it looks like it's sometimes an ill fit there. So Stan Van Gundy knows what he's doing. I think, like you said, for season 2 and Stan, we trust.
Yeah, and we do have positive things to look back at. Once Josh Smith was gone,
yes,
the Pistons were arguably the best team in the league with guys that were shooting very well. Brandon Jennings found his stroke. Caron Butler, Anthony Tolliver was a player that came up for us big. And
I liked him. That was weird because who is this guy? Right? Who is he? He's a big guy who can sit there and hit the three, and he has no problem rebounding and basically sacrificing his body. It was nice to see a guy like that who just come in off the bench, generate some points, help get some rebounds, and just help facilitate some offense, and then help facilitate some defense as well.
Pistons have a long way to go. It would be nice if we had a player, maybe one of the guys we drafted 8 turns into a superstar. Because the guys right now, basically in Detroit, what's been happening is the guys that we've been drafting have been guys that have been taking their time to develop, marinating slowly, and it's about that time we get someone that just comes in and is just a pressure cooker and is ready to go, ready to deliver. So I'm waiting to see that. A guy that just comes in and just, hey, over-delivers. There's no rule that says, hey, you can't come in, whether it be a Stanley Johnson, whether it be a Winslow, and just come in and be that guy who's a surprise of the league. Just come in and dominate. Why not?
Look
Why
at
not
like
us?
this. Look at Brandon Jennings. Do you remember going into last season, and even in the middle of the season, all the hate for Brandon Jennings? We thought he was the worst player ever. We couldn't understand the contract. We thought it was awful. Everything was bad. He got the ball, he just threw it up and go off the rim, or it would just be nothing good came out of Brandon Jennings. They traded away Josh Smith. Stan Van Gundy started working his system. His system got put into work.
Yeah, it spaced the floor better. Yeah,
Brandon Jennings became a player.
He got hot at the right time. The reason why people don't like Brandon,
I think he became a player, though. I think he realized his potential. I think he realized what he could do and how that translates to making other guys on this team better. And I think he fully accepted that. And then he had that devastating injury with his Achilles. So I think Stan Van Gundy's got a plan. He's got a system. He's got Reggie Jackson, right? We like him.
He likes to shoot.
He likes to shoot. But we like him because he can pass the ball as well. He can see the floor. He does a good job doing what Stan Van Gundy needs him to do. Let Stan just kind of work his magic, and hopefully at 8, maybe he's not a transcendent player, but maybe he's an all-star, and I think an all-star is good enough.
Let's see what the Pistons do. Please just draft a player that can come in and be productive, because that's what we need. We need a productive player, a guy that can be potentially a starting small forward, or a guy that can come in and learn the system and be effective. A lot of times the Pistons have taken guys that kind of haven't been starters, that have kind of been bench players, and then they come in later in the season after they've learned the system. But, Dinwiddie's going to progress. I like the pieces that they have in place. Drummond's there. Monroe is likely to leave. And Reggie Jackson's probably going to be signed to an extension with the Pistons. And now we're all going to wait and see what Brandon Jennings does. Draft night's going to be a fun night. We'll see. Doc and Jock will definitely break it down on the podcast for sure. I seen you chugging down that protein shake. You headed to the gym after this?
Yes, sir.
That's what I'm talking about.
Dude, I got so fat.
Did you get swole? Did you get swole at Dominican?
Yeah, like the wrong kind, though. Like
the
super,
fat kind?
Yeah, super soft and chubby. It was horrible. Came back home, put a pair of pants on. I was like, these don't even fit anymore. This is bad. I can't even. Did you notice when I came walking in here, I could hardly move?
Your
hamstrings are so sore, legs hurt. Oh, I missed the gym. I gotta go. It's bad.
Okay, we'll wrap this up. We've spent a lot of time talking about the Detroit sports scene and other important topics. Good stuff. There's some stuff we even left out. But it was a great podcast. I can't wait to listen to it again. Great stuff ahead. Lots of great things happening in the summer months, and we're going to bring it to you. Week after week, the Detroit Sports Podcast will be here, putting out 2 great podcasts a week. Motor City Sports Rant every Monday. Doc and Jock every Thursday, some special one-on-one chats with those that we find fascinating. Thank you to everybody who's been spreading the word, going to our website and telling everybody, hey, download these guys. I do feel a certain sense of a sports community continuing to build. The momentum's growing. Adam and I love bantering back and forth. We don't shy away from it. We love all opinions, whether it be ridiculous, great, or mundane. Follow us on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. We are building a sports community, and we love the support. For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I am the Doc, John Macaroon. This has been the Doc and Jock Detroit Sports Podcast, episode 98.
Go Tigers, go Pistons.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I hear voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk.